want to support this amendment, and it's so ridiculous to be seeking to charge a carbon tax at the cost of fuel as it is today. And the cost of fuel as it is today is mainly because the government is taking the very most of it in tax already. And you have the barrel of crude oil today is cheaper than it was 4 years ago. And to think that the prices that poor people are paying at the pump, and they're not paying it for fun, Minister, they're paying it to keep their cars going so they can go to work, so they can bring their children to school, so they can do the shopping. Not all of them are living in urban areas. In fact, in Kerry, apart from the towns and even the villages, most of Kerry is very rural and you're very far away from shops and from schools and from anything. If you don't have a car, you're stranded, and that's the gospel truth. If you can't get public transport, you can't indeed get taxis even at night nowadays, and not to mind during the day, because the taxi people have to work otherwise, because they're not making a sufficient income from their taxes. They're only, the very most of them are only kind of helping themselves to stay going with the taxi. It is barely paying the bills so they can have a car. That's what a lot of them are telling me that the taxi it wouldn't be justified at all, only that the insurance and the fact they have it taxed, that they have a car to use to go to other work and different things. So that's why they can't stay out late at night working, because they're not generating enough income. So there aren't taxes to go around, there aren't debts or losses, and indeed there isn't public transport only from one town to another. But to go into the rural areas, the class 3 roads or the cul-de-sac roads, there is no public transport like that to help people. So, and then you have the hauliers that are bringing the goods and taking the goods, and rural Ireland depends so much on that. And to think that any government, any minister would seriously think of adding to the cost of fuel today and the cost that it is already. The carbon taxes, we understood it, and we were the only group in this House that voted, our rural independent group, that voted solidly against the introduction of the carbon tax. But the reason for the carbon tax was to coax people away from using fossil fuels, as you call them, diesel or petrol or whatever it was. But God Almighty, Minister, can't you see that people can manage without it? And even the cost that it is, and that it has been and practically still is almost €2 for a litre. That's over €9 for a gallon. I mean, and take cars in rural areas where we're only in third gear. You can't get an economical return for those cars. But look, that's what they have and that's what they need. And it's not fair to be insisting to add to their woes by insisting that he carry on with the carbon tax and add it to the cost of the fuel already. And look, just to clarify, Lascombe Corley, we asked you last year to forego the Nora tax. So all you're doing now is substituting, you're doing it now, but you're still insisting on the carbon tax, which is totally unfair. And I would expect that TDs and ministers, when they get power, that they would be fair to the people and to the country that they're representing. But you're being totally unfair with what you're doing with the carbon tax, because it's certainly excessively dear as it is. And as I said already to you, the barrel of crude oil is cheaper now than it was 4 years ago. And that's a fact, and he can look at the records.
Deputy Mike.